Thank you. Dr. Pal, please don't go outside. I will lose all the audience. Please.
Thank you very much. It's going to be hard to compete with the previous sessions. I hope you forgive us whatever we end up not doing.
Dilip, thank you so much for being here. I enjoyed every conversation. I know this is a session everyone can resonate. I know we have entrepreneurs, we have C-level executives, but I know more than 50% of the audience here are full-time working people who are striving to move from mid-level to senior level, trying to do a side gig. I'm definitely confident that you will take something from this session today. So Dilip, to start with, what is your insight on the major transition points in someone's career life cycle?
Okay, that's a very good question. Let me just take a poll here. How many are actually working as a job without an entrepreneurial venture on the side? They rely on the job for their careers. Okay, about 10% of them. Okay, and how many of you are pure entrepreneurs who have a venture? About the same number. And how many have both? Very few, maybe 10. Okay, thank you. So, what I would like to say in response to that question is that there are many transition points in a career that most people do not recognize. There are 6 of them. And most people, when they enter a career and manage their career trajectory, they think that it's a linear progression from, let's say, an entry-level NCG college graduate to CEO, and it's not. And let me just quickly tell you what those 6 transition points are. The first one is when you go from college to your first job. And the reason that's a major transition point is in college you're learning, studying, and in your first job, you are creating something from it. And that transition to most people is one of the hardest ones, because it requires a whole different set of skills that NCGs do not have, because they rely so much on their GPA and smartness and all the stuff they did in college, which is almost irrelevant in the job market. Not completely, but I'll talk about that a little later. The second transition happens when the individual contributor becomes a manager, first level manager. That's a step change. It's not just the next position, but it's a step change. And the reason it's a step change is most promoted managers at the first level assume that they have been promoted for their excellent technical work, which is true. But that's not what a manager's role is. So what happens is, even though they are now a manager, they devolve into doing the technical work for which they got promoted. Their job is now to manage resources, and they don't do that well. And that's exactly the reason, the seed of why 80% of the managers are dysfunctional. 80%, that's the number. The third transition occurs when you go from manager to a director level, which is head of the department, where you have to now oversee many similar functions that you have not been party to in your past. And you have to now understand how to conceptualize that, manage the resources, and make yourself a name for yourself into your next role, which is typically a VP level role. In the VP level, now this is number 4 transition, in the VP level role, you have to look at similar functions as you did across many of these departments that you ran. And in this role, your competition is not somebody else, but the person sitting in the next chair in your boss's weekly meeting. That's the person you're competing with. And that's when it gets harder and harder into the 5th transition, which is either Chief Operating Officer or a EVP or somebody in that role. There you're looking at your entire business and how to manage it. And the next transition is the CEO, which is the 6th transition, where you're looking at your ecosystem, you're looking at your competition, you're looking at the entire business and the vertical that you're running and where is your place in it. And you're reporting to the board of directors, which you have to manage. And the reason I say that these transitions are distinct, because a lot of times people who come to me say that, Dilip, I want to go from director to VP or whatever it is that they want to do. They miss the fact that for them to secure that next promotion, they have to already start working in that role and show that they will be effective when they are promoted. They don't do that. And a lot of them assume that if they did a good job in their previous role, they would be promoted, and that's wrong. So I hope that answers your question.
No, definitely. I don't think anyone who's starting their career would think through these transition points. We are only looking at one day at a time or one level at a time. Thank you. And you have been doing this for 23 years and helped thousands and thousands of executives. I think you are like around 23 countries, is that right?
23 countries, correct.
What is the common theme you see which restricts someone from achieving their full potential?
Okay, the most common theme I see is that people come with the assumption that if you do hard work, if you respect your boss and do good things, that you will be promoted. Or more importantly, those of us from people with Indian origin think that, and our parents told us that work hard, obey your boss, do good work, and you will get what you deserve. Correct? Our parents told us that. Right? I don't think that's wrong, but what is more correct is you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And there's no point negotiating at the time of your performance review for the year that's already behind you. Most people go into the ATEA thinking that they're going to secure something, bigger raise, bigger promotion. Wrong. The time to do that is the previous performance review, where you lay out your plan and say, here is where the problem is in our department. Here is what I'm going to do about it on my own initiative. And if I deliver this to you at the end of this year, I want you to make me a senior manager. Would you agree to do that? And the manager will say, yeah, if that makes me look good, I will make you a senior manager. Now, you go back to your office, thank your boss for having that meeting, and tell him what you're going to do. And in the last line you say, thank you for agreeing with me, that if I deliver on this initiative, I'll be promoted to senior manager. He's not going to write you that email, but you're going to write to him or her. And if he's even gone after 6 months after this discussion happens, the new manager comes in, as it happens in many cases. He says, I don't even know you, are very senior one. Here is the email that my last staff promised, and I'm halfway through that initiative. That's the way to secure what you deserve by negotiating it, and that's what I mean, and I don't think that makes sense.
No, that doesn't. That is. So climbing the ladder is a struggle, but once you get there, surviving and sustaining in that level is even more of a challenge.
Correct.
What would be your advice for the executives who already got there, but they want to survive happily and successfully?
Right, I think that's a very good question. People go after their promotion to an executive role, and they think they have achieved their goal, but real competition starts as you start moving up in the corporate ladder. So what you have to do is look at the next level, what the challenges are for the company, and look at what needs to happen for you to not only do great work, not just good work, but great work, and to make that work visible. To make that work visible. So you have to almost hire, I'm not suggesting that you hire a PR person, but you have to be your own PR person. I'll tell you a story that just happened. I have a client, he's a vice president, and he wants to get promoted to the senior vice president, and he wants to work with the CEO of that company. So he has been working with me for the last 7-8 years. And he came to me about a month ago and said, this is what I want to do, how can I do that? So I said, the first thing you want to do is doing a lot of work on workflow automation with AI. So what we decided to do is to take his best showcase of workflow automation and put that in the company newsletter with his picture and his team's picture, and have a headline that basically says what workflow automation does. The CEO saw that article of his own company, and immediately called this guy within a few days and said, I'm going to see a client who is very much interested in workflow automation. Would you come with me to make the pitch for workflow automation? Now, he has been working with the CEO. He's a VP still. He wants to go to the senior VP level. But just imagine the power of that. No amount of hard work he could have done would have gotten him into CEO suite. But the fact that he took the initiative to make himself visible to all levels in the company made all the difference. And that's why we fail to do. We do good work, we beat our drum and say, look at what I've done. But unless people see that visibly, you really haven't reached that point of acknowledgement or recognition.
No, definitely. So, lately we see a lot of Indian origin executives making it to the top. It used to be Sundar Pichai, Ranui, we had very few, now we lost count of it. What do you think is their secret?
I think, it's very basic, and that's where I think most people come up short. And let me go back to what I started saying in the beginning, that the first phase of the career is going as an NCT, new college graduate, from college to the first job. And then on, I'll talk about the 6 stages of it. Do you know which stage has the biggest fallout? It's the first stage. 40% of the people who enter the workforce, the TikTok generation, 40% of them quit their job after the first or the second year, no later than second year, because it's such a shock for them, the difference between the academic world and the new job world, that they think there's something better out there. They quit the job and start looking for this job. And so, the point I want to make is that the biggest, once again, just repeat the question exactly so I don't want to ravel it.
So it's about the Indian origin.
Yeah, right. Right. And so what gets you to somebody like Sundar Pichai's role or whoever that you hold as a model is to focus on the first phase of your career, 25 to 35 years of age, and achieve what I call technical excellence. No matter what it is, it doesn't have to be technology, it could be ad copywriting, it could be a legal brief, it could be marketing collateral. All of those are technical areas. So if you can concentrate and get yourself recognized as the SME and a go-to person in that space, then the rest of the career will follow you, even though you are not using that specific skill in your higher roles. 80% of the people fail to do that, and I'll tell you what they do. They find the job that pays them the most money, right at the outset. They find the job that has the fanciest title that they can grab. And they wander through the first phase of their career, and at the end of that, which is 35 or so, they say, gosh, I really am not that expert. Maybe I should do an MBA. So then they go to MBA. That's another kind of illusion that has been created by MBA schools. I have nothing against MBA, but this is how they have marketed that. So people, 80% of them, who fail to achieve what I call singular excellence in their first phase of life, pursue MBA, and now they have this mixed bag of some technical expertise and MBA, and now they are on a cruise to find themselves a great job or a great position, and that doesn't happen. So, in the case of Sundar Pichai, he did what I just told you he did. He did absolutely excellent work on some of the early development that Google was doing. And as a result of that, he became visible. And on top of that, he was a good manager, which helps. But you cannot be a good manager unless you have developed the technical expertise in the first phase of the career. If you don't do that, then it's too late. That's one point I want to make. The second point I want to make is the excellence you have in the first phase of the career is almost irrelevant as you grow in your career. People say, well, I'm not going to be a circuit designer. I was a circuit designer one time. But the discipline of mastering that is what gets you there. And through that process, you develop what I call conceptual skills. And it's these conceptual skills that take you to the higher levels of success in management. And that's one of the successes of these people who have gotten there, Sundar Pichai and others.
So if I read it right, so in the beginning of your career, don't go for title, don't go for money. Go for
if you get it, that's great. If you get it, that's great. But people focus on that rather than what they want to achieve when they're 35. And very few people do that. And I have this data anecdotally, although I work with 7,000 people. 80% of the people fail to do that. 80%. And that's why the engagement in the job, and this survey has gone on for 70 years, that number has not changed. 70 to 80% of the employees are disengaged in their job for this reason.
Okay, so because we talked about Indian origin men making it big, the question is around Indian origin women.
Yeah, right.
Beginning of the career, we struggle with childbirth. Mid-level career, again we struggle because of kids' academics. No matter how much I go out, work 20 hours a day, I still have 20 to 30% of my time I need to make sure my family is running. What is your advice for women who still want to, sprout and get out and make it big?
And I think you can do all of that, except that, especially women, and I have a lot of women clients, and I'll give an example of one, specific one, that you cannot have all of that at once. In other words, during your childbearing age, you should have children, you should have the family life, and you should not put career on the back burner, but you should not aggressively go after things that you know may get you in trouble. So once you get that out of the way, then you can start focusing on your career development. And I think basically what I would say is, the first thing I would say is, yes, you can do all of it, but if you go after doing all of it all at once, you will fail. So you need to pace yourself. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, and I've observed this with a lot of my female clients, and in fact, many of couples are my clients, although they are separately, they come to me. And what I find is, if a woman knows 90% of the subject matter that is required in the next level position, she thinks that she's not adequate for the job. But her competing male counterpart barely knows 60%. And he thinks he knows all of it 100%. And they are the ones who go touting how great they are and loud-mouthing and so forth. And they get the job. And this person, the woman, career woman, doesn't get it. So I want them to be more confident about themselves. And the thing that I say to everybody, to all my clients, not just female clients, that we are good at telling our stories to others about our job, our successes, about leadership. Tell those stories to yourself. Tell those stories to yourself. And see how that transforms how you see yourself. And very few people do that. I mean, what I call your own dialogue. And if you do that, it will reinforce your belief in yourself. And as somebody was saying here before, from doing to being, that's where you want to be.
And I think nobody can cover that better. The self-doubt, or hiding behind a male colleague, or expecting a male colleague to acknowledge my ideas before even I go out and speak out, it's all there, even with me. Thank you.
So let me tell you that story. This client came to me. She was first level quality software manager of a major company here. She was 32 years old. And she came to me about 8 years ago, and she said, "Look, I don't think that I see much promise in this role. I want to go into the C-suite. How can you help me?" And I've been working with her. Now she is the president and chief product officer of a $3 billion division of a company for the last 2 years. Now, I'm not taking any credit for it. She did all the work. But the point I want to make is, once you see that something that is missing in your life, you need to come out and say it. Most people are afraid to say, "Gosh, I'll look weak if I come and say I don't know how to do this." Because most people, and I've seen 7,000 of them, most people in their careers, when they come first to me, they are in a state of what I call unconscious incompetence. They don't know what they don't know. what I call willful blindness. And my role then is to move them from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. I have 10 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. This is my favorite question, right? People, it's like, look at me and say, you're street smart. Tamila Solapona Bolshevik. There is a studious version versus street smart, right? I know I have read your articles about 5Q. Where does this 5Q play in a role of whether someone is a studious versus a street smart?
Sort of a great question. Okay, so those once again coming back from college with 4.0 GPA think that they can conquer the world. They are wrong. Because about 10, 15 years ago, there was a study done about career successes in the corporate world. And they found that the correlation between IQ and executive success is 20%. But if you're in college, the correlation between IQ and your grades is 100%. So where do the other Qs come from? And those Qs are emotional intelligence, EQ, political intelligence, PQ, cultural intelligence, CQ, and contextual intelligence, XQ. All these four are developed skills. IQ is God-given, is what I call the nature skill. And so, once again, I was saying in the beginning of this conversation, if you can focus on these other four Qs and really get good understanding of what that all means to your own growth and how to influence people and how to work with other people and so forth, that's where the game is. The game is not in your brain, the game is in your mind.
That's great. So, now that every day my manager is going to wake up thinking that, oh, today I'm going to promote Pony. That's not his goal for the day, right? The promotion is an organic process. It has to happen, but it's a long process. So where does it start, and how do we induce, as a person, as a career, career person striving to get that promotion? Where do I induce? Where do I start?
It starts with you. You need to have that inner confidence that my potential is not being tapped correctly, and I'm not being rewarded with the right assignments, not with the right paycheck, but with the right assignments. And you need to go to your boss and say, here are some of the challenges we're facing with our customers, with our suppliers, with our relationship with our competitors, or whatever in our ecosystem. And here's what I would like to do to contribute and make it better. Now, this is something you've done on your own. And if you can do that and have this conversation well before your review is due, then you are set, like I was saying about 10, 15 minutes ago. And I'll tell you a Warren Buffett story. Warren Buffett was 12 years old when his uncle in upstate New York had a hardware store. And there was a big snow and the front of the door was covered, they couldn't get in, a lot of people were lined up because of the storm and so forth. And Warren Buffett and his friend Jimmy, they were about 12 years old, came to the store to help his uncle, and the uncle told them, that guys, if you and Jimmy can get this door open for us, I will pay you something. So these guys, small kids, 12 years old, this is mid-30s, worked for 4 hours shoveling the snow. And his uncle did roaring business all day because people were lined up. And at the end of the day, Warren Buffett got 1 quarter and Jimmy got 1 quarter for their work. And this is his first lesson. He said, if I had told my uncle before I shoveled the first shovel of snow that we each need $5, otherwise do it yourself, we would have gotten $5. But once the doors were opened, it was meaningless to him. That's what happens with your ATR. You go to your boss, the first thing he says to you, Sally, here's your 2.5% raise. This is more than anybody else is getting. I hope you're happy with it. Don't take that. Have the previous year's plan and get a commitment for a promotion or a raise or whatever you need. Don't go into the review with asking what you want then. Do it beforehand.
Before I ask my last question, any question from the audience? Time's up. Okay, we'll have one question.
2 minutes. Okay, great.
Hi, this is Sept from New Jersey chapter.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry.
It used to be the case where employees want to do a long haul with the company, right? So they want to stay, they want to even retire from the same company.
Yeah, correct.
But not anymore. You did mention that the TikTok generation, they do like 1 or 2. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and
right.
I run a company in India where we hire interns and we train them, etc.
Yeah.
And within those 2 years, I don't think we can take the investment out, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of investment for us to hire them, train them, etc. So what can an employer or an entrepreneur do to extend the stay of this people?
So you're talking about the tenure in the company?
Yes.
Okay, so let me give you, there's a lot of myth around it. There is no number, no hard and fast rule. You have to feel in your guts that you are in the wrong place. I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine got 2 jobs, a client of mine got 2 job offers. One from Yahoo and one from eBay. Names don't matter here, but these are real stories I'm telling you. So he called me and said, Dilip, we worked on this, I got these 2 offers, which one is better? And the one at eBay was, the promise was he will work directly with the CTO. And at the Yahoo place, he was a skip level to the CTO. And the position was not that glamorous in terms of the scope and everything else. So I told him to take the eBay job. That Monday, the first day he called me, he said, Dilip, I'm working 3 levels below the CTO role. And they said, that's my assignment. And I said, you can't stay there. Call Yahoo and tell them you changed your mind and you're going to go back, join them. He lasted there 4 days. Friday he quit. So there is no hard and fast rule. You have to feel in your gut that this is the wrong place for you. Or if they said something that they can't honor, you need to stand up to yourself. You don't owe it to anybody, you owe it to yourself. So in my mind, there is no tenure. If 1 week is too long, it's too long. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
My name is I have a question on the career advancement. So most of the technologists, they wanted to go to the leadership roles.
Yeah.
And they try different ways. Some grow it organically, some try different transition models. They try to change the domain, they try to change their technology and all those things, and finally they reach that. But once you reach there, surviving is really hard because you have so much of competition in the same level, where you are trying to survive and you're trying to showcase you're bigger or better than all other people. But for some people it's positive, but for some people it's very hard to sustain there. So now they are in a confusion state. Whether should I move up, how can I move up, what should I do for myself, or should I go back? And it's a demotion for them if they want to go back and they want to do the lower job which they were doing before the leadership. So for those type of people, what type of advice would you give for the career advancement? Should they stay or should they look into a different approach, or what is the way? Because many people do mistakes during the transition.
I think that's a very good question. I think somehow we are, especially people of Indian origin, are stuck with the concept of linear career progression. You can only go up, it's like a diode, if that makes sense to you. And so if I come back to a lower position, or even as an individual contributor, even though I'm a senior director, that's disgraceful. That's the mindset with people go. And this just happened to my client yesterday. Actually, yeah, yesterday. And he's a senior director at a $40 billion company. And he called me and he said, I had a team of 35. The company has an aggressive new project that they're taking. They think I'm the only person who can spearhead it, but I'll lose all my team and I'll work directly with the CEO. This is going to look bad on my resume because I lost my team. I said, wrong. The way we're going to package your story is that because of your invaluable contributions, the company carved out a project directly report to the CEO. And that's the story I said is going to go on the first page of your resume. So it all depends on how you view what you do and how you place value on what is important to the market and not to you. And this just happened yesterday, so I can tell you with great confidence. And he was excited about that. Because I told him the story we can have on the first page of his resume as a result of this particular change. Okay.
I think we are out of time. For you to excel in anything, the first thing you should do is hire a coach. You can find Dilip on LinkedIn, Dilip Saraf. He is one of the top LinkedIn coach. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Saraf, and thank you, Ms. Ponnarasi Raj. It was very valuable. I'm sure each and everyone would have learned a lot more, a deeper insight in building their competitive edge. We are having a very powerful session on branding. But before that, I would like to invite our sponsor, Prancer, for a